Hey everybody, welcome to Sid's Little Corner of the Internet. We've got a third-party transforming figure review for you. This time around, we're going to be taking a look at the Cyber Factory CF-01 Starstorm. So this is their take on the Starscream as we saw him in the 2018 Bumblebee movie. And this guy, he looks gorgeous. He's so cool. But let's go ahead and get into it, and we'll start with this absolutely ginormous packaging. I had to completely redo my camera setup because of the size of this box, so sorry that I couldn't get everything in frame here, but the box is just huge in comparison to the figure. So right on the front we have this really cool rendering of Starscream or Starstorm. The enemy's ashes paved the way to conquest CF-01, and you've got all that really sweet artwork right there. Turning it to the side, you have Cyber Factory 2021 CF-01 Starstorm. Going around to the back, not a lot. You've got this silhouette, and then you have this face kind of really close up and pixelated CF-01 Starstorm, and then you have the Cyber Factory logo. Swinging around to this side, it's the same thing as the other side. And up top you have really nothing, more silhouettes, and on the bottom you have nothing. So that is it for the huge box for this guy. So let's go ahead and see what came inside that packaging. Behold, laid out here before you is everything that came inside that box with Starstorm. So we will start right over here with his sheet of instructions, which is very well done, very nice. You will note on here that it does tell you that you're going to need some batteries for that special feature we'll talk about later, and I'll also show you the type of batteries that you are going to require. And you do get a display stand, which is really cool, so we're going to go over that first. So first, you've got two pieces that go with this display stand. So I'm going to bring it over here and show you. You do have pretty nice quality there. I mean, it's just a matte black, not incredibly detailed, but it's nice and sturdy, and it does the job, I suppose, would be the way to put it. It's not the best display stand that I've ever seen, but you can see it's got the dovetail right there for the assembly, and then it's got this little piece right here that slides on and off. This is the one that I have on there right now. This is for the alt mode. But you just slide this off, and then you can put this piece on, and then this piece is for the bot mode. So I'm going to go ahead and put it on there now, so that way we can see that in action here shortly. So yeah, you get a display base. Not the greatest, but it's not the worst by far. And you're left with the three items that we see down here. So we're going to start down here with this little red thing. This is actually his visor for his eyes, if I can pick them up. There we go. So you can put this on his eyes if you choose to do so, and he looks good in both modes. I think the visor, it just sticks out away from his face a little too much for me, but I still think overall it looks pretty good. So it's got that clear, translucent red, well, it's not clear, it's translucent red plastic, and the eyes do glow through there pretty well. So that is the special features. He does have light up eyes, and we'll see those here shortly. Yeah, so there's the visor. And then you get his gun. So this looks to be some type of, you know, I don't know if I would call it a shotgun, but it's definitely not a pistol, and definitely not a rifle. This looks more like a tactical shotgun, something you would see on Earth. But good weathering effects on there. The paint looks nice. It's not very heavy. It's just a really light plastic. And then you do have the ability to move this handle back here, so you can change that angle a little bit if you choose to do so. And you see you have those tabs on there. These are for the typical masterpiece slot in the palm kind of action. It doesn't work. I'm just telling you now, maybe it's just my copy, but it doesn't work. It doesn't stick. So thank goodness he has nice tight fingers, because you can wrap the fingers around and he'll hold on to this, but it's not going to secure tightly with those tabs right there. You can see both sides. As far as the overall look goes, it does look very nice. And then you've got this little tab down here. This is for his alt mode, and we'll see that in his alt mode as well when we've got this mounted in his vehicle mode. All right, and that brings us to the last piece. This is his big old arm cannon. So for those of you who've seen Blitzwing from the movie, this is very similar to what Blitzwing has as well. And for comparison, we'll be seeing the Zeta Toys Flash, and Zeta Toys Flash has one of these that's very similar as well. I do like the paint scheme here, though. This is very Starscreamy with the blues and the reds and the grays. And you get that little touch of gold right there. So I think they did a pretty good job as far as the paint goes on this and molding. I will say that he holds it better in bot mode than he does in alt mode. We'll talk about that in alt mode. I have a slightly different style of putting this on his vehicle mode than most folks do, and definitely different than what you see in the instructions. But yeah, it works pretty good. He does look good when he's holding it, so I'll give him that credit where it's due. But there you go. All right, so that is it for all the accessories. So let's go ahead and bring Starstorm in here and take a look at his details. Here he is. This is Cyber Factory's take on the Cybertron and Starscream we saw from the Bumblebee movie. And this guy absolutely looks wonderful. I do want to say before we get too deep into this, full disclosure, I have had this figure for a while. So this video is being recorded in July of 2022. I've actually had this figure since December of 2021. I just haven't had an opportunity to get a review done for him. You know, life gets in the way. This is not my full-time job. I have other things that I need to do. So this is one that I wanted to get around to for a long time, and I finally have the opportunity. So this isn't fresh off the boat, if you will. So I would think by now a lot of people have heard about this guy or seen him, but this figure is so beautiful. It's worth a review and just worth going over and talking about this guy. So let's go ahead and get started, and I'm going to start right off the bat with his big special feature, his light up eyes. So you do have a button right up on the top of the head right here, and when you push that button, almost like magic, those eyes glow, and they look really good. They really do. I hope it's coming across on camera, but it's a nice sinister glow. It just really sets him off. More so on this figure than on the Zeta Toys Flash. Zeta Toys Flash, their take on Blitzwing also has light up eyes, but I don't know if it's because of the silver face here and you can make out more of the details, but this just comes across as far more sinister and looks really, really well done. While we have him here in the close-up, let's go ahead and slap that visor on so you can see what I'm talking about, what he looks like with that visor. So it's really just a matter of pressing this on. This is just a friction fit. So you just give those a little bit of a push, and there you have him with that visor on. So you can still see that glow coming through. Like I said earlier, it sticks out a little bit from the head. So I don't know if I'm really crazy about it. I like it. I just think I might like this more without that visor on. But there he is with the visor on, with the lights lit up, and here he is with the visor on with the lights turned off. Either way, he looks really good. But yeah, all right, so let's go ahead and take that visor off. The other concern that I have is because this is just friction, I'm really worried about losing this thing. So also just something to take note of if you get this guy, be really careful about that. But let's go ahead and get into those details now and talk about that face sculpt. And this is a really well done face sculpt. Now, is it perfect? No. I think there are, you know, as far as the sculpt work goes, there could have been a little bit better in certain places, but overall look for this face just comes across looking fantastic. And even on the sides and the back here, let's go ahead and turn that around. You can see it looks pretty good. These are the two screws right here where you take the head apart to put the batteries in. Before we get too far, let's talk about those batteries. As far as I can tell in the instructions, it does not specify which batteries you use, but these are the type that you're going to want to get. They are SR521 SW. You can find these on Amazon pretty cheaply. It takes two of these, so you can get a pack like this for, you know, $2 or $3 US. So really not that bad of a deal. But yeah, the SR521 SW is what you're going to want for those eyes for the light up. All right, so taking a look back here just at his shoulder intake stack things, good detail in there too, and overall just the paint and the weathering on this figure, he looks fantastic. And coming down to the chest, everything looks gorgeous there. He just looks like he's seen things, you know. I'm typically not a fan of weathering effects on figures, but this is all right. It comes across looking pretty good. And so you have plenty of detail going on down here in those legs, and being a third-party masterpiece type figure, as you would expect, you're not going to see any hollow areas. Everywhere you look has great detail on there. Those legs look good. It does have die-cast knees, so you know, don't let him knee you. And coming down here, those feet look really good. Everything looks great there. He's got those faux wheels on the front. And coming over here to the side, pulling that arm out of the way. He's not the heaviest figure, but he does have some pretty good heft to him. And then we got that nice weathering there. Coming all the way up, looking up underneath here. Everything comes together pretty good. Let me get my hands out of the way so you can see what's going on. And then you have those gorgeous wings. Gorgeous, gorgeous wings. Look at these things. They are beautiful. And these are really sharp, so be careful. You don't want to hurt yourself and you don't want to break these off, so just be careful with that. Null rays look good, and something of note, the gold on the null rays matches the gold on the main gun here, so just little touches like that I do appreciate. And then of course you get this nice copper up there, so a little bit of different coloring in different spots on this guy. Taking a look at those arms, let's look at the inside first, because you do have some good detail going on in those forearms. And then you have your fingers. You've got the one finger here, and then the other three are fused together. And you got your thumb where you can move that guy around. Good detail there. Up underneath, not bad at all. And then we'll talk about it on articulation, but you can move these shoulder pads a few different areas. You don't want to do that. That's for transformation, but you can kind of showing you what's going on under there. You've got this hinge where you can move them up here if you want them sitting a little bit higher. Hopefully that shows on camera. So sitting a little bit higher, sitting a little bit lower. The takeaway here, or the detraction is, you know, when you do that, then you're starting to see a little bit of how the sausage is made when it comes to the shoulder assembly in there. Still doesn't look bad. Let me bring that back down. And I think this is my preferred mode, with the shoulder pads down like that. And turning him around to the back, he looks good everywhere. There we go, big boy. And man, I love that wingspan. There's just something cool about this wingspan. He just looks so good. I'm going to adjust my camera there a little bit. There we go. But yeah, every angle this guy looks good. Oh, I inadvertently have his leg opened up down here. Sorry about that. Let's go ahead and close that up. There we go. That's better. Now you look better. So yeah, looks good all the way around. One of the little touches here really works out well. So he's got little thrusters right here. So, you know, if he's going to take off, you know, you can certainly do that. So yeah, it looks great. Now, let's get him turned around. And now let's go ahead and talk about the articulation on this guy, because as you would expect, a figure at this price point with this level of engineering is pretty well articulated. You're not going to want for a lot here. So let's go ahead and start with the head. And you've got a good amount of side to side. You've got a good amount of up. You've got an okay amount of down. And as we saw earlier, you could take that all the way around if you want to do so. And then talking about these shoulder pads, you can lift these arms up and you can get a little bit more if you pull these shoulder pads away. So let's do that. So you can get a little bit more out of that if you need it. And you could go all the way around, just keep in mind with the wings. So you can certainly do that if you want to. Talking about the wings, these wings are completely full of expression. One of the things that I do love about this figure, so you can bring those wings up, and just let me adjust my camera up so you can see this, just to soak it in. So you can bring those wings up in just kind of a really menacing kind of pose like that. You can bring them down in more of a spread out pose. You can bring them back and give him a nice streamlined look. You can bring them, turn it around so you can see, you can give them a twist this direction. You can bring them in if you want, bring them out if you want. You could disconnect this up here if you wanted to and kind of give those a little bit more of an angle, or bring those back. So really, all kinds of things that you could do with these wings. It's very much like a cat's ears. There's just a lot of expression that occurs here with those wings and the things that you can do as far as posing goes. So really, really, really cool. I really like that. All right, and let me adjust my camera again. We're going to go a little bit lower here. All right, coming down, we talked about those shoulders. Now we're going to talk about these arms. You do have double jointed elbows, so you can get a nice deep elbow bend there, and then bicep rotation that goes all the way around. And then you have wrist rotation that goes all the way around, and those fingers, like we mentioned earlier, you have the 3 fingers that are connected there, and then the 1 finger all on its own, and you do have a couple of points there, so you can bring those down like that, bring them up right there. So let's try it on that individual finger. There you go. Focus, focus. There you go. And then this thumb is on a ball joint with a little pin right there, so you can do the old thumbs up, and then you can bring that down, twist it whatever direction you want to. So you've got good range of motion there as well. And let's move these arms out of the way, and we'll talk about that waist. So you do have waist rotation. Just keep in mind all the stuff that you might hit when you twist that waist. So you get about that much either way before you start running into things, but it's still enough to give you a nice pose. So you shouldn't have any issues getting a good pose out of this guy. All right, now we'll move on to the legs. So as far as the splits go, again, he is limited only really by hitting himself. So you do have ratcheted joints here, but these legs are heavy. The ratchets, they're nice strong ratchets, but you know, it takes a lot out of them to try to hold, but you're going to get a split. If you can get around his geometry, you're going to get a full split out of this guy. Not quite a Van Damme, but you'll get a full split out of this guy. And then you can bring those back in. And as far as kicking, again, keeping in mind you're going to run into things. You're going to kick forward about that far, kick backward quite a bit more, which I do appreciate. This is really nice for posing. And then you do have thigh rotation right there. You can go about that far out and that far in. So not all the way around, but a decent amount of rotation there. Knees, double jointed. So let me try to get a good clearance. There you go. So nice deep knee bend there. And everything looks good. When this opens up, all this looks good here. Doesn't quite completely fill out at this point, but still looks pretty darn good. All right. Moving on to those feet. So you have the ability to go down that far, up that far, and then you have ankle rotation in that far, out that far, and then you can, if I can hold his legs still, these are very tight, it's kind of squeaky, you can rotate those feet out. Now you're going to run into this little piece of thruster right here, but on the inside you can, man, you can totally pigeon toe this guy. I mean, like if you wanted to, let's do this, come on, pigeon toe, work with me. I want to see this, I need to see this. There we go. Oh look, he's just learning to walk. I like it. The pigeon toe, it works for you. I don't know, I remember doing the time warp. Maybe he's doing some kind of a dance. But anyway, yeah, so the articulation, really well done on this guy. You are not going to hurt as far as posing goes. Would have been nice if he had some butterfly joints in those shoulders. Would have been nice if he could have had a little bit of an ab crunch. I think that would have been helpful, but really, you're going to be able to get this guy in some amazing poses, and because of this overall shelf presence, you're not going to want for any type of dynamic posing on this guy. You're going to be able to get him there for sure. All right, so now that we've got all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get this guy accessorized up and take a look at him from there. Okay, so here he is in all of his fully accessorized glory, and he absolutely looks wonderful. I love this figure. I love the way he looks. I'm so happy about this figure. He just looks gorgeous. I can't say enough about how nice he looks. I turned my lights down a little bit because I'm hoping that it comes across that you can see from this distance, that you can see the glowing eyes there. But as you can see, he's holding his shotgun. He's got his big hand cannon. He's on his stand, and he has his visor on. And added bonus, the hand cannon is kind of sort of effects compatible, so you can throw some effects on there if you want to. Unfortunately, his shotgun, if you want to call it that, his shotgun is not, and the big barrel of the hand cannon is not effects compatible either, but at least those small pointy missile looking things there work pretty well. But yeah, this guy looks fantastic on your shelf. He looks fantastic on a stand, and I guess from a standpoint, I would have liked it to have been a little bit taller so you could get a true aerial view of this guy, or give him that look where he's flying through the air. You know what? I did not bother to check to see if thrusters were effects compatible. That would be really cool. I don't know if they are. If they are, I'll throw it in the video. If they're not, then you'll never hear me talk about it again. So, but there he is, all accessorized up, looking fantastic, like he is ready to just take on the Autobots and do some slaughtering. So, now that we've got that out of the way, and I'm kind of getting hypnotized by looking at this guy and how beautiful he is, let's let's get him into his alt mode, and we'll take a look at him from there. The alt mode also is gorgeous, so let's go ahead and get into that. All right, here is Starstorm in his fantastic-looking Cybertronian Tetrajet alt mode. I think this turned out looking great. I really like the weathered effect and the paint applications and this overall design. I really enjoyed the Cybertronian designs that were in the Bumblebee movie, and this guy's no exception here. He's just funky and cool, and I really dig it. I like the coloring here and the style. I wanted to put him up on the turntable really quick to just kind of give you that overall 360 before we really started handling this guy and doing some of the close-ups on him. But you can see how he mounts to his stand. Looks good from every angle on that stand as far as that goes. I think even the back here cleans up pretty good. And because of the fact that he's a Cybertronian Tetrajet, well, he can pretty much look any way he wants to. So one thing that is different that I do a little differently than what I've seen some of the other people who have this figure do is just the attachment here with that gun on the front. According to everything, the way you're supposed to attach that gun is actually 180 degrees from how I have it right now. So you would actually have it with where the main barrel is on the top, and then this blue would be on the top and the gray would be on the bottom. I find that it's really difficult to get this mounted, and I know that there has been some scuttlebutt about that on the internet as well, where people have had mounting issues to getting this on there and keeping it on there, and a lot of people just use friction to hold it. Well, in just playing around with it and getting frustrated with it, I tried it upside down one day, and much to my surprise, it works. It holds on very nicely. It almost feels like it clips in by design. I don't know if it does, but it feels that way. And I kind of like the way it looks. I kind of like the grays and the reds all match right here. That blue's on the underside. You've got the blue on the underside here for those arms. So it all kind of feels like it flows from a color standpoint for me. And I like it. So we'll see it when I manhandle this guy. We'll see it with the gun the other direction. But just wanted to give you guys this overall look right here so you could get the full picture and just really admire this guy and see how he looks on his stand. So now that we got that out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take him off the stand, and we'll start getting some close-ups of this guy. Now that we've got that turntable out of the way, we're going to get him off of his stand, and we're going to get some close-ups, look at some of those details that he offers. But the one thing that I do want to point out is this is one of my minor gripes with not the figure, but with the whole package here. He just sits, it uses gravity and friction for this stand. So he doesn't lock in anywhere. There's nothing under here that locks him in. He literally just sits on there with friction and the weight of the figure holding it there. So do be careful when you're handling this figure on the stand and setting him up on your shelf. Just be aware that there's not a lot holding him there, so be careful and watch out for that. So to take him off of his stand, because it is just friction and gravity, it's pretty easy. You just grab the figure and give it a little pull, and it comes right off. And you can see there's that mount, and it just mounts right up under here. You just plug it in right there. I'll take it off just for a moment so you can see. You just mount it right there, squeeze it in, and that's how it sits. So it's not the most secure thing in the world. Just be aware. All right, so let's get that stand out of the way. And now I will do my best to carefully hold this guy. Now, he's gorgeous, but it's really easy to start moving things around. The gun is a little wiggly. It's not going to come out as long as you're really careful, but you're not going to want to use this to support any weight or anything like that. So, but you are going to knock this around. You're going to knock these around. So just be aware of that as you're handling them. But let's go ahead and we're going to start with that gun because I'm going to show you the different configurations here. So as you can see, I have the gun mounted like this. Now, it fits really securely for me. I think it fits almost more naturally than having it this way. But per the instructions, per all the photos, per other reviews, the idea behind this gun is to take this blue side up, and then you have this half circle in there, and it lines up to that hole right here. Mine doesn't. Something just doesn't work. So you can kind of get it started. It goes in right there, but it doesn't do anything else. I've tried multiple configurations, multiple tries, thinking I was doing something wrong, thinking that, you know, maybe mine was out of spec, out of tolerance, but it just doesn't fit. You know, you have this hole right there for this nose cone. You know, you do your best to try to line everything up, but I just can't get it. Now, you could, as some of the other reviews that I've seen do, you could just have friction, but even then, with friction, I mean, you could have a super crooked nose, and I just don't, even if I could get it to hold, I don't like that. So I've discovered that everything lines up nicely when I just go this direction. It just feels natural. It feels good. You slide it in, and then if I can get it lined up, get this back where it belongs. It's kind of hard doing this with my arms extended, so apologies. But yeah, you just plug it in and you're done. It's about like that. Let me come over here and grab it from this side, squeeze that up, and yeah, I mean that's it. It just works. You know, it's not perfect by any means. This gun in general is not perfect by any means on here. Oh, and then that gun came off because I was manhandling him. That's okay, I'm going to leave this gun off. So you can see it just plugs in right under here. You have, using this as my pointer, you have this little tab right there, lines up with those little slots, and then you've got that hole. So you just spread those apart, drop that in like this, and then you're good to go. So I'm going to put this off to the side. But yeah, even without the gun on the front, actually, especially without the gun on the front, I like him. He looks good. So you do have, as you handle him, you know, these little intakes will fall down. This stuff might pop a little loose on you. That might flip up, but that's okay. He's still a great looking alt mode. So yeah, all right. Now, we've seen the gun. Now let's take a look at that nose cone. So this is an odd design choice for me. Even on the CGI model, it's just an odd design choice. It just seems wide open right there. Okay, it works. Looks good. Nice paint applications here with the copper and those reds and the grays. The weathered effects on the grays look good. I don't know if I'm a fan in general of weathered effects, but these weathered effects, if you're going to have them look like this. They look nice. As nice as a dirty looking figure can look. And coming around to the back, that all looks good back there. You do have your little thrusters. And let's go ahead and flip him over so you can see what's going on the underside here. So he does clean up pretty well. Not a lot of robot kibble, unless you really know what you're looking for, but he cleans up and hides everything pretty well. So no major issues there. And coming around to the back, as we saw him when he was on his pedestal, all this looks really good. You do have those little thrusters in there as well on either sides of the feet. And then from the top, looks good. And articulation, you can do a few things with this guy if you want. You could sweep these wings back. So if you wanted to do something like that, you could also, if you keep them disconnected, you could bend those wings down a little bit more. You could change the angle of these wings if you want to do that as well. So it's up to you, whatever configuration you want to use. But you do have these little dovetails in here. So if you want to bring these wings down, you just have to disconnect it from those dovetails. So just be aware of that. That's how they're held in place. But yeah, I think he looks all right. I like this alt mode quite a bit. You can get a little bit of, if you want to do like Imperial Shuttle kind of action, you could do something like that. So that's kind of cool. I would not recommend setting him on the ground without his stand, or at least doing it often. This guy's just really heavy. There's die cast in there, and you know, bringing him down, you're just going to put a lot of stress. Well, you can't see it because of my angle. I'll set him down and then I'll bring my camera angle down. You're just going to bring a lot of stress on these wings when you lower him like that. So just something to be aware of. You can have him like this. It's just not something that I would recommend. But yeah, I do like the alt mode on this guy. I think he looks good on his stand. Wish list items, I guess, would be, you know, if we really had a good way of putting this gun on, and maybe some type of lighting effects. So it looked like he would be, you know, either firing this weapon or firing the main weapon, or even his null rays down here. It would have been kind of cool to have something like that. But yeah, overall aesthetic here, this guy looks good, and he's pretty fun. Transformation itself, getting him into this mode, it's not bad. He's a little fiddly. Just, you know, in your typical third-party, lots of panel alignment kind of thing to get him here. But the actual mechanics of getting him into his alt mode, it's really not that bad at all. And I wouldn't call it enjoyable, but it's not miserable. So I don't mind at all doing it. But yeah, so now that we've got all that out of the way, and we've talked about the details on this guy and a couple of different options that you could do, we'll bring in some comparisons and we'll see how he stacks up to some other figures. For our first and most relevant alt mode comparison, we're going to be taking a look at the Studio Series Starscream next to the Starstorm figure here. I recognize that this is apples and oranges. There is, you know, much more cost, much more engineering that's gone into this figure to make it look as screen accurate as possible. This is a mainline figure that, you know, had to compromise cost, overall quality, design, engineering, transformation, so all those things. So this is a good figure. It's just a figure of compromises because of the price point, whereas this third party over here, they were able to take their time and make it as accurate as possible. So apples and oranges, really just something set up here for a sense of scale between the Studio Series, which I would imagine if people want it, they have it by now, and the third party. Moving along to our next comparison, this is the War for Cybertron Siege Starscream in his Tetrajet mode. And you can see, again, this is simply just for a sense of scale. There's really no true comparison here. It's just apples and oranges. But I wanted to let you see from a size standpoint what Starstorm is looking like here compared to a Siege figure. And for our final alt mode comparison, I wanted to bring in a G1 figure to do a comparison against, and I decided that I would bring in my G1 Skylynx simply because he sized up well next to Starstorm, and I don't think he's gotten a lot of camera time, so I wanted to give him a little bit of love here. That's going to do it for the alt mode comparisons, so let's get this guy back into his bot mode and do some comparisons there. For our first bot mode comparison, I figured I would bring in a G1 Seeker because it only seems to make sense, and gosh, we've seen a lot of Starscream lately, so I decided I would bring in my G1 Skywarp. So there you go, you can see those two guys together. Moving on to our next comparison, I think this one really gives you a good sense of scale as well. This is the Leader Class Combiner Wars Starscream, which is in itself is a big figure, but you can see that he is dwarfed by the Cyber Factory Starstorm. Next up is the War for Cybertron Siege Starscream in his Tetrajet mode. And yeah, it's just a couple Cybertronian Starscreams hanging out, plotting some evil. Moving on to what would be arguably probably the most relevant comparison here. This is the Studio Series mainline Starscream figure from the Bumblebee movie. And yeah, you can see, obviously this is apples and oranges. This is not meant to be a true comparison. But you can see, you know, just the engineering, the upscaling, everything that goes into the Starstorm figure here versus that mainline figure. Still a nice figure, don't get me wrong, but yeah. Oh yeah, we got a couple big boys in the house now. So for those who don't know, this is the Zeta Toys Flash. This is their take on the Bumblebee Blitzwing. And yeah, I mean, from an overall height standpoint, Zeta Toys Flash is certainly taller than Starscream, or Starstorm, excuse me. But Starstorm has him beat as far as those wings go. These wings are just beautiful. I absolutely adore them. His wings are okay. Don't get me wrong. And this figure itself is phenomenal. If not, makes me worry a little bit when I handle him just because he feels fragile. He's not fragile, but he feels that way. But yeah, these two guys, glowing eyes and all look really cool together. So I hope you guys enjoy this as much as I do. Just for tee-hees and ha-has, I thought it would be fun to bring in a couple of the MPMs from the Bumblebee movie. So you are probably familiar with these two guys. On the left is the MPM Bumblebee, and on the right is MPM Optimus Prime, both of those from that 2018 Bumblebee movie. And you can see not only Starstorm, but also Zeta Toys Flash just absolutely towers over these figures, but they all really do look pretty cool together. And finally, just because, why not? Here we see the Starstorm with MP52 Starscream. That's going to do it for the bot mode comparisons, so let's go ahead and get into those final thoughts. So when this figure was announced a while back, I had my doubts. I wasn't entirely sure what we were going to get. I wasn't familiar with the Cyber Factory company that made this figure, so I didn't know if it was going to be high quality, low quality, somewhere in the middle. But I have to tell you that I am pleasantly surprised on how this figure came out, and I think he is, if you have the means, he is certainly a worthy addition to your collection. But let's get into the meat of it a little bit and talk about why, and we'll start with that overall aesthetic, the overall look of the figure. For a transforming figure that has two modes, you really don't get much better than this when it comes to the look. I mean, this guy looks great in his bot mode, he looks great in his alt mode, and very few compromises have come in the fact that there is a figure here in front of you that transforms. So talk about a great shelf presence and a great overall look. Regardless of which mode you have him in, this guy certainly has it. And typically I'm not a fan of weathered paint effects, but it just works on this guy. He looks so cool and a great shelf presence. I think for a transforming figure, masterpiece scale at this price point, it really doesn't get much better. I'm going to give him a 10 out of 10 for overall looks and the aesthetics there. Moving on to the articulation. Again, for a transforming figure, it doesn't get a whole lot better than what we have right here. For the fact that he does transform into an alt mode, you can get this guy in some great poses, and frankly, I'm limited just to the size of my turntable down here. Otherwise, I would have him in a more dynamic pose than what I have him in right now. So you're not really limited on what you can do with this guy. A few minor nitpicks, I guess, would be on that waist rotation. So if we could have gotten a little bit more out of that waist rotation as it is right now, you get maybe 20 to 25 degrees of waist rotation before you start running into his upper hips. So, you know, it's always good to have more, but it's not going to limit you in what you can do. Just would have been nice to have more there. And then same goes with that front leg kick. So similar situation, you're going to have all this geometry kind of running into each other. So you do get a little bit of a limitation on that front kick. The rear kick is good, but that forward kick coming straight out is kind of limited. A couple of wish list items. These are not nitpicks, but just wish list items that I'd love to see on my figures. He has waist rotation, but it would have been nice if he had an ab crunch as well. And separate fingers, individually articulated fingers. So as it stands right now, you have that articulated thumb and a separately articulated index finger. And then the other three are fused together. So it would have been nice if we could have had all four fingers independent of each other to get some extra posability out of that, but I'm not going to knock him for that. That's just a wish list item. So overall articulation, I'm giving this figure a 9 out of 10. Now, moving on to the accessories. So there's good and bad here. The accessories look great, very much like the figure. The paint is well done, the sculpt work is well done, absolutely matches the figure and adds to him. I just feel like they're a little lower quality. I don't know if it's the accessories or if it's just the way that they made up to the figure. But that shotgun in particular, the slot in the palm to the tab system doesn't work perfectly. And in the alt mode, that big hand cannon, when you put it on the nose, it doesn't fit quite right in the orientation that the instructions want you to put him on. So there are a few issues there. Overall looks of the accessories are great. Would have been nice if they could have added blast effects, if they could have given you blast effects or at least made them blast effect compatible with some of the ones that are out there. It would have been really cool to see that hand cannon just having a big boom on the end. But other than that, I think they're pretty good. The only other thing that I would say would be on the base itself, that black base for his alt mode and for his bot mode. It would have been nice if there was some adjustment available on that. You know, either raise it up, lower it up, change the angle, change those axes of rotation. So in the alt mode, you could have him kind of dive bombing or shooting into the air. But as it stands, it's a pretty static base, so it's mediocre at best. But overall, I think the accessories are pretty well done here. I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10. Now, moving on to overall quality. I will say I have zero problems with the figure. Everything is tight, everything works the way it's supposed to, everything tabs in the way it's supposed to. I have no sculpt work defects, I have no paint issues whatsoever on the actual figure. All my issues lie with the accessories, which we just touched on those. So this interaction between the palm and the shotgun, it's a little loose. So thank goodness his fingers are nice and tight, because you can hold that on very well. In bot mode, the hand cannon latches right in. It looks great, holds on great. It's not going to fall off. In the alt mode, that's where we have our issues. As I discussed when we looked at that alt mode, when you try to mount it this way with the blue side up, it doesn't fit. It's really just friction holding it on. If you flip it upside down, it seems to click. I don't understand what's going on there, but it works for me, and frankly, I like it better. The last thing that I would say is, for the base, the alt mode is held on just by friction. It's that little U-shaped area, and you kind of press fit the figure into that little U shape, and you hope for the best. But if you bump that base, if you try to lift him up by the base, he's not going to hold in there. He's not held in there securely at all. So I think they could have found a better way to hold the alt mode on the base. So I don't know if that's design or if it's a tolerance issue, but I'm just not real comfortable with that. So I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10 on quality. Moving on to value. This one is, of course, always the most subjective one. I will tell you that although the MSRP on this guy is competitive with a lot of the other Masterpiece figures out there, I would have been a little bit more comfortable had he been less expensive. So as it stands right now, I had this guy on pre-order at TF Source, and I paid $200 US for this figure. Now, I don't have any regrets making that purchase, laying that money out, but $200 is definitely salty. It's not something that people should take lightly. So had this figure been, $150 to $170, I think that I would have felt far more comfortable with it. But as it stands right now, for the money that I paid, I don't have any regrets. I absolutely adore this figure, and I think you will as well. I would just say, for those of you who have the means, then I think he's worth picking up. I just would have liked to have seen him maybe $30 to $50 US less expensive than what he is right now. So I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10 on overall value. I still think he's worth it. I think $200 US is kind of pushing that upper envelope on him. So with that is going to bring us to our final grand total here out of 50 possible points. The Cyber Factory Starstorm gets 43 out of 50, which puts him at 86%. So it makes this guy an easy recommend for me if you have the means. Once again, this is not for the faint of heart as far as the price goes, and it's certainly not something you want to get for the kids because of the outlay, the investment that you would pay for this. But he does absolutely look great on your shelf. He is actually a joy to play with. His transformation is fun and intuitive. It's a little bit on the fiddly, panely side, but it's really not that bad at all. And it is fairly intuitive, and he just looks phenomenal. I absolutely adore the way this figure looks. So if you have the means, I would say definitely pick him up. So with that is going to wrap up the review. I hope you guys got some good information out of this. I hope you were entertained, and if you haven't already done so, be sure to hit the like button, be sure to subscribe, and feel free to leave some comments if you want to. Let me know what you think about this guy or anything else going on in the world. So until we see you guys in the next review, take care.